What's up, everyone? I wanted to share something today with you guys because it has come to my attention, and I really do think that in certain situations, unsolicited advice can be a good thing. Now, I've run into situations where this has really ruffled some feathers with people that I know in the recent past, and I think that there's more going on beneath the surface when it comes to giving somebody advice. If there's multiple situations, I'm not talking about the nosy neighbor who's trying to micromanage your life and always tell you like what to do that you pass by on in front of your apartment or something. I'm not talking about the relative who you only see once a year who's telling you exactly what business to get into and what career choices to make. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about somebody who you know that you care about, somebody that could be a family member, it could be somebody that just is a good friend that's looking out for you. And I'm talking about situations where you need to look at the intentions behind what somebody's saying when they're offering this advice. And you need to put yourself in their shoes, have that ability as well, because a lot of the time, like what I've found from looking on the internet is that there are people that are so vehemently against the idea of giving any sort of advice, and they have these hard rules that says if I didn't ask for it, then don't give it, and as if that should be just a blanket statement for everything. And I've also seen people that feel differently about this, that feel more towards the way I feel about this, which is, in my opinion, there are scenarios where giving unsolicited advice is not only okay, but if it's somebody that you care about, not giving the advice would be against my personal moral code, against my personal code of ethics. I would feel like unwell from not having at least said what I felt to say. Now, from there on, it's up to them whether they want to listen to my advice or not. But if it's somebody that I truly care about, and I'm going to get into examples right now about this, then I would feel as if I was not being true to myself by not speaking on this situation. Because for me personally, I want to hear people's perspectives. I want to be able to make an informed decision. And many times I look for multiple perspectives, especially when I'm sharing problems with people. I go to people with my problems, me personally. I share my problems because I am looking for perspective. I'm looking for an alternate opinion, an alternate viewpoint on my situation. So the three situations which I think that I mentioned now, firstly, if the person that you're giving this theoretical advice to is putting themselves in danger, if they're putting their well-being at risk and you care about this person, I think that is one of these situations where you're obligated to give the advice regardless of whether they're going to take it well or not. They might not feel good about it. They may in the moment, they may hate you for it, but I think that that's something that you have to do. It's a decision that you have to make personally. But personally for me, I would not feel right about it if I know that this loved one or this person that I care about is putting themselves in danger and I didn't say anything about it. Now, number two, if the person is disrupting you and your peace and disrespecting you and actively doing things that are hurtful toward you, that's another situation where unsolicited advice is merited. And the third is if the person is harming others. So I have a few examples here. So for the first example, let's say that your son is getting involved with the wrong crowd and he is selling drugs. Maybe he's even joined a gang. He's going down a bad path and he could get himself in jail or killed. And I actually had a roommate that was in a similar situation as this. When we were in LA, we had moved out there. He was working at a strip club and it was very bad. The guy who owned the strip club, he was violent. He always carried a gun around. He actually threatened me. And some of our other acquaintances that we had all gone to school with almost had this kind of intervention with him. And we're like, hey, and they gave him this unsolicited advice, right? But he didn't take the, and I did as well. I told him like, look, you got to get away from this guy. This guy is having a clearly negative impact on your life. And he came home one day beaten and all this stuff, right? Okay, so that's one situation. And you can think about that. It doesn't have to be, the reason I gave my roommate as an example is it doesn't have to be uh, a son or a daughter. It doesn't have to be, it can be a peers type situation as well. So now, let's say that your parent has been diagnosed with heart disease, and maybe they're obese, maybe they're diabetic, maybe they're continuing to engage in these unhealthy habits. Now, you giving them this unsolicited advice of telling them, recommending different choices in their diet or different lifestyle choices. Maybe you want them to stop smoking cigarettes. Maybe you want them to stop drinking alcohol. That's another situation where, look, what are you going to do? Are you going to be just the person that just doesn't want to say anything because you don't want to step on any toes? And in the long run, the facts of the matter is, if they have this health problem and they continue down this path, they're going to suffer. They're not only for themselves, maybe for their other loved ones. So it's having this effect on everybody around you and your family. And I think it's perfectly warranted to be giving advice. Now, let's say that your partner is drinking too much consistently and then they're getting behind the wheel. Another situation where, again, they're potentially now in the position where they may harm other people. They may be a danger to themselves, maybe a danger to others, and unsolicited advice is again warranted. Okay. Now, I have some other examples for the second of disrupting your peace. So let's say that you and your partner are, in public, like in public gatherings, whatever, and or even with the kids, and they're actively going against what you just said. So in that case, again, now they're disrupting what you have going on, either with your kids or with these people around, and you stepping in and saying, hey, look, like, we need to figure this out. Like, you need to change this approach of dismissing what I've said, because now it's like we're not a united front. Now we can't work with the kids together, and we look weak with these people that we're talking to. That's not as intense of an example as these other ones, but let's say that your partner keeps allowing bringing shady people over to the house, and it's negatively affecting you. You're trying to have a peaceful environment, and they keep bringing these disruptive people around. Maybe they're doing drugs, maybe they're doing illegal things, and maybe there's kids in the house. Maybe you know somebody, you have a friend who's bringing this type of stuff, this type of dangerous stuff into the house with the kids. Well, again, I think it's merited, again, for you to step in and give them that advice and say, hey, look, I know, like, before you had kids, this was like something that was going on, but I think now that there's kids in the house, like, maybe taking a look at this and seeing, like, if there's any way you can meet up with these people somewhere else, or change the situation. I don't think it's necessarily the best thing for the kids. And again, like, I'm not saying, there's probably better ways of going about this. I may not be wording this in the most palatable way, but just the action, if you can see what I'm saying, of giving that advice because they are putting other people at risk and other people at danger, is merited, like I said. So yeah, another example I wrote down is that they're getting behind the wheel after drinking, and they have other people in the car with them. Maybe they have their kids in the car with them. Or even a friend who goes out and to a party or at the bar, and he gets really aggressive with women. Again, he probably isn't going to feel good about you giving him this advice. He may deny it. He may resist it. He may somehow get combative, possibly, as well. These are all possibilities. But not saying anything and just allowing this to continue, I don't think is the right solution. And in all of these scenarios, it could be argued that it's none of your business. That's what people online, that I've seen on people online saying, is that you should never give out unsolicited advice. But you have to ask yourself, are you going to act in accordance with what you know to be right? If you care about these people, then at the very least, speaking your mind, at least you've done that. And then it's up to them to decide from there. And there's a saying that you can't bring a horse to water, but you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. But at least you have said your piece. And granted, I acknowledge it may not always feel good in the moment, but it's an overall positive thing. And if one sees somebody driving over the curb, getting flat tires, driving through stop signs, telling them to be careful may not be received well, but it comes from a place from you looking out for their best interest. And if they listen, they can avoid doing that in the future. They can avoid bringing harm to themselves and others in the future. And maybe it's something that affects you as well. Maybe you're always the one having to leave out of work to come and give them a jump start in their car because they're leaving their lights on. I can speak from my own experience right now. I have a Volkswagen that I will forget to lock, right? I'll forget to lock it, and then the lights will remain on and it will drain my car battery. And as much as I may not like it, it may not bring me pleasure in the moment to have my dad remind me and say, hey, remember to lock your car. Remember to turn off your lights. I know that it comes from a place of caring. I know that it comes from a place of concern, and I can understand that the facts of the matter exist regardless of how I'm feeling in the moment, and that it's coming from a place of caring. Now, there's another situation where my dad and somebody else that I know, we were having dinner, and he was telling her about all these different things about cuisine, and he was sharing the stuff about cuisine, and he was like, you should try this, and you can try mixing these spices with this and to create this. And I didn't think anything of it. I was like, yeah, like that's cool. And to be honest, this may have to do with the fact that, I've done a personality test before, and I happen to be very high in openness. So maybe that's why I have this way of seeing things that I personally do, but I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, yeah, that's cool. And I do try a lot of the stuff that he says. He was talking about boiling coffee at one point. I gave it a try, decided it wasn't for me, but he told me I should try it, and I did. And after this conversation, we were in the car, and she told me, she said, I felt very bothered by that. And I was just like so confused on how she could feel bothered by that. And she interpreted it as him, she was like, I'm not stupid, and I know how to cook, and I know how to make like these different types of foods. And I was just like, yeah, he never said that you were stupid. I didn't hear, when I heard him saying this stuff, all I heard was him just wanting to share his experience. He's traveled around the world, he's been to all these different places, he wants to impart this kind of knowledge to us or to you about different types of cuisine that he's tried, and he's just sharing his experience with you. And she completely took it in this negative way that didn't even compute for me, really. I can see how she, like, after the fact could take it that way, but like I said, it never even crossed my mind that he was thinking that. And then I've had conversations with people as well where it's like, yeah, I'm saying something to somebody and they've taken it the complete wrong, like completely not how it's been intended. And there was nothing that he said, not even in the tone of his voice or anything that implied that he thought that she was stupid. It was just a matter of him sharing what he feels passionate about and wanting to share that with her. And like I said, it may have to do with the fact that I tend to be high in openness and I'm willing to try things. Sometimes I will make recommendations to my dad and I find out he's never tried them. And so, that's everybody's different. But I do think, and somebody said that in one of these videos that I watched, that by giving advice, you are inherently taking on a position of superiority to the person that you were giving advice to. And I completely disagree with this. And I'm going to find the post right now that I made, because that argument that you are inherently viewing yourself as superior, it doesn't make sense to me, because kings would have advisors in their court. I will call up a friend and ask for him for advice on something that I'm struggling with. I take that back. I don't ask him for advice. Because I'm like this, and because a lot of my guy friends are like this, we know without each other having to ask that what we're looking for is advice. And so when I call up my guy friends and I'm sharing my problems with him, he then immediately is like, oh, what did you think about it like this? Like, this is maybe what I would do. And I appreciate that because that's how I am. That's how I see the world. That's my model of the world, is such that when I'm sharing my problems with somebody, I'm looking for feedback. I'm looking for another perspective. I don't want them to just be a sympathetic ear. That doesn't do that much for me. And I've read in the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, that can tend to be a difference between men and women, that women a lot of the time want a sympathetic ear. They want somebody who's just empathizing with them, and they don't actually want any solutions or feedback. And that may be that it's a difference between men and women. It could also be a difference between individuals, and the difference between, like I said, certain people might react differently to these things. But I'm going to now read a little bit of a post that I found here. And it is on LinkedIn by a woman named Barb Nangle. So this can't be just something that's completely categorically men versus women. Obviously, there's more nuance to it than that. But I think that it gets to a larger point of, sometimes I think things that bother us are kind of triggering us. And in that example, my dad did not tell her that she was stupid, but she felt as if he was saying that she was stupid. And I think that that is a symptom of a larger issue there, an underlying issue where it's raising feelings from the past that maybe somebody said something before, it reminded her of this. And so I'm gonna read this excerpt here, and regarding the fact that feelings aren't facts. So maybe you've heard this saying, feelings aren't facts. Though this is true, they're still real and they matter. The point behind this saying is that feelings don't need to rule your life. Take your feelings into account, but don't necessarily use them as the only guide to your actions. I used to let my feelings rule my life. I didn't feel like doing something, I didn't. If I was afraid to do something, I didn't do it. If I felt like indulging in a hot fudge sundae, I did. I now understand that just because you feel something doesn't mean you should act on that feeling. We also want to consider facts when deciding on a course of action, not just our feelings. Feelings are often based on the past rather than what's currently going on. This is particularly so for people who have any kind of trauma. When that's the case, you're likely to have feelings that are out of proportion regarding something that's happening in the present. I think of it like this. It's like the trauma creates a kind of fault line when something happens in the present. It bumps up against the trauma fault line, which causes a reverberation through your system. The way that reverberation gets expressed is through our feelings. The problem is that when you don't know any of that is going on and something happens in the present moment to trigger you, you think it's the current situation that's causing your feelings. Perhaps someone does something that reminds you of the past, so you think it's them who has caused your big giant feelings. If that's the case, you might think, if they stop doing that, my big feelings will go away. But what's really going on to help with these feelings is dealing with the original trauma. That will help get the feelings more right-sized. More about that in a moment. Feelings are real, they matter, they tell us something about ourselves. Where we get into trouble is when we act as if it's a fact that our feelings are always coming from the current position or situation. When I decide you are the cause of my problems, I then deal with my feelings like they're facts. Herein where the problem lies. What we need to do instead is focus on what we want, not on what we don't want, the shitty feeling. For example, I want peace. That means I need to ask myself what I need to do to get that peace. Focusing on other people and what they're doing is not going to get me peace. It's going to get me to focus on them and what they're doing, which I can't control. Trying to control them is impossible, so it's a fruitless and endless drain on energy, i.e., not peace. What I can control is me. I can control what actions I'm going to take regarding the things that are happening around me. This can be hard to do when we're feeling triggered, but it is possible, especially when you pause before responding. Take a few deep breaths to get the signal into your body, I'm safe, so that instead of responding from your lizard brain, as I call it, I respond from your frontal lobe or the higher order thinking part of your brain. If you need help learning how to pause, I get it. It was monumental for me to learn how to do that, and I explain it in this podcast episode. I can leave the link to that down below. When you pause like this, you come out of fight or flight mode and you can look at the facts of the situation, e.g., he is not my mom scolding me for doing something wrong. He's my coworker and I'm an adult. I'm not saying you always need to control your feelings. It's important to feel your feelings, allow them to exist rather than resist. But that resistance is much more of a problem than the actual feeling. Feelings are energy, which continually morphs and changes. They will not last forever. But it's hard to remember that when you've been triggered. Resisting those feelings makes them even bigger. When you couple that resistance with the fact that they're based on often traumatic and dramatic instances of the past, our feelings can seem huge. If we let the emotions go through us, they will dissipate. But if we resist, they build, create tension in our bodies, and allow yourself to feel those feelings. Don't let them rule you. We should allow feelings to inform us, but not at the exclusion of facts, especially if those feelings are rooted in the past. It's important to honor your feelings. You were given them for a reason, but it's also important to make sure you're not treating them as facts. They're not necessarily indicators of what's really going on. You won't know until you've done some investigating. If your feelings are way out of proportion, it may be that you're dealing with trauma. If that's the case, you may very well need the help of a therapist who specializes in the treatment of trauma. And I think that this was very well stated. And like I said, I found other articles online that were coming at this from a complete opposite viewpoint, saying that no, like never give anyone advice ever, because if they're not feeling like good about the advice, then you're the one in the wrong. And I think that that's just really more finger pointing and more blame. And I think what's so eloquently written here is searching for, what do you want? You want that peace. You want to be in harmony with your relationship to this person, if it's somebody that you care about. Again, I can give another example with my dad and my stepmom. The other day, she was driving out to the farm, and they have that app, like location on your phone where they can see each other's location. And he had seen her stopped in the middle of a like side road where it's not even like a normal road. And it was there for 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And it got to the point where it was an hour. And over the course of time, he's steadily like freaking more and more out about it. Again, I told him, tried to like see the situation to be, look, she's probably there. It's probably just the app that's glitching. But nonetheless, we went over there to find her, see what was going on. He thought that maybe, the worst was on his mind, that maybe she got in an accident, maybe she was indisposed. So finally we get there, she's not there, but she calls him, and my dad is like pissed on the phone. And he's like, why didn't you have your phone? Like, you should have had your phone on you. You should keep your phone on you. And my stepmom, there's the unsolicited advice again, right? But my stepmom takes it very gracefully. And I was impressed with the way that she handled it, because deep down, she knows that he's coming from a place of caring. She knows that he is concerned for her welfare, for her safety. And that is why it upset him to know, or to think, that she was stranded somewhere in the middle of nowhere for an hour, potentially in danger, potentially, like I said, in danger. He doesn't know what the situation is. And in his mind, it could have been solved with something as simple as her keeping her phone on her. And he's gotten upset with me about that in the past as well. And I understand where it comes from. It may not feel good to me in the moment to basically be yelled at for not having my phone, but it doesn't change the fact that we live in a time now where we expect to be able to get a hold of one another. And if you don't have your phone for, let's say, hours and days and whatever, and you don't call the person back, it does warrant concern then for the person. They're saying, what's going on? What's going on with them? Like, are they okay? And it raises that concern. So with that being said, I think I covered almost everything that I wanted to in this. The one last example about facts versus feelings here is there's this other guy that gives this example about, he doesn't think Bitcoin has any fundamental value, right? But regardless of how he feels about it, you can buy a Bitcoin for, and he says at this point in time, it's now significantly increased, $15,000 or whatever. And whatever you read, he says, whenever you read this price will be different. So people ascribe value to it, regardless of whether I perceive it to be valuable or not. You can't change the facts that Bitcoin can be bought and sold for this amount of money, regardless of my beliefs or my truth being that I don't personally see the value in it. And Yeah, there's another little post here from another woman that I liked, which is truth is subjective, not objective. My truth is different than your truth. Truth, as we typically talk about it, is perspective. We lose sight of this all too easily. The fact that truth is subjective when it comes to feelings. We assume that because we feel it, it must be true. When we need to be separating feelings from facts. Just because you feel like you can't, or feel like you're a loser, or feel like life is too overwhelming, doesn't mean that this is the truth. It means that it's entirely possible that you can, that you're not a loser, or that life only seems overwhelming. Just because you feel it's true that someone's doing something to you, or feel it's true that what they said means XYZ, or feel that they are to blame, doesn't mean that that is the truth. It's entirely possible that they aren't doing anything to you, that what they said is being filtered through your interpretation and your misunderstanding, and that whatever they say isn't the truth anyway. It's important to separate facts from feelings. Lastly, I really do want to find I think actually here it is. I think I found it just now. It was this woman talking about how she feels as if she has a boundary of not being told by her friend or being encouraged by her friend that she's doing something good. And that it presumes that that person is controlling and superior. And like I said, I completely disagree with this. So I'm going to find the post here. Okay. Yes. So somebody said, I think it's human nature to show support or encouragement verbally. It may be a bit offensive to want someone to listen to a problem of yours, but at the same time control how they respond to you, especially if it's not rude. Maybe initially ask them to be a listening ear, but to shut down a supportive response, it may give people the impression that you just want to use them as a body to dump thoughts onto in the moment. So, yeah, I would say that this is a very useful thing because when, especially between men and women, as I read in this book, since we have different communication styles, it can be very helpful for women to tell a man or even cut him off if he starts going into this advice giving mode that, look, all I want right now is an ear. All I want right now is a sympathetic ear. That's all that I'm looking for. I'm not looking for advice right now. Okay. Because yeah, I think that this could be, there's a point, there's some truth in this. I mean, if you want to control the way that they respond when you share your problems, that's what's natural to them. And like I said, my guy friends and I've had guy friends come to me with their relationship troubles and stuff, and they're kind of just like waiting for my response. And so I give them my opinion on it, and they value it very much. And that's the way that a lot of men tend to communicate. But so now somebody responded here. It's not controlling how someone responds to you, but rather asking them not to be rude, to show some decorum. Unless you're in actual position of authority over someone, it is rude to express criticism or to praise directly because it implies a power differential in the relationship. If you deny that reality, you deny that subtext, which relays deeper meaning is present in superficially innocuous statements such as, I think you're making a good choice. When spoken between peers, it's one peer trying to appear superior to the other. And I'm open to considering this, but I did consider this because this goes kind of hand in hand with a book that I've read, and I have a video on it on the channel now called The Courage to Be Disliked, talking about vertical relationships and horizontal relationships. But where I disagree is that by giving somebody any form of unsolicited advice, you are automatically assuming superiority to that person. I firmly disagree with that. And here I have my response here that I wrote. The thing is, people are different. Without fail, and this I'm speaking for myself, I only share problems with others when I'm looking for them to share feedback and give me their opinion. I disagree that hearing someone tell me if something seems like a good choice or not makes them superior. Kings and courts had advisors. They were not superior to the king. They were simply there to offer their opinion. When a king was doing something, when a king wanted to take over a territory, the general would tell him if he thought that it was unwise to do it in the manner that the king wanted. The king doesn't automatically say, oh yeah, you're superior to me because I got advice from you on this subject matter. That's not how it works. So I wrote, I find that when I share my problems with people and they do not offer their opinion, I get confused because that's what I was looking for. And when they remain silent and I have to ask them to say something, when I share problems with my guy friends, they give me their perspective without me having to ask. And I personally prefer that over having to ask. For me, by sharing my problems, it is implied that I want feedback. And again, that can be possibly the difference between a lot of communication, that men and women tend to have different preferred communication styles. But I think that the best way of doing this is to preface a conversation. If you are unloading some sort of negative thing, like story from work or problems with your family or some sort of health problems, anything like that, like this person said, instead of just viewing the person and wanting to control how they respond to you, why not preface it with, look, all I'm looking for right now is just a sympathetic ear. Because I do agree with this person. They have a point that, like, maybe initially ask them to be a listening ear, but to shut down a supportive response, it may give the people the impression that you just want to use them as a body to dump thoughts onto in that moment. Anyways, guys, that's my take on this. I wanted to share my thoughts on this because I feel like for some reason we, like, in our modern day society we have all these different labels, right? And it does make sense that we've done it with the growth of the internet. Everyone's sharing their opinions and there's all these terms being thrown around all the time, like gaslighting and manipulation and controlling behavior. And I don't see it, especially in the context of we've lost our respect for our elders. Elders would always offer unsolicited advice, and people that have experience in an area will offer unsolicited advice. And I value it, especially if it's somebody that I know, especially if it's somebody that I care about. I'm gonna listen with an open ear, as long as it's not nagging and continuous when I haven't even shared my problems. But if I'm sharing my problems, if I'm telling somebody about something that I'm struggling with, I value their perspective on it because it helps give me perspective around the issue. And then, like I said, I'm still free to make my own decision about it. It's not like I have to do exactly what they said. And if viewing it like that, oh, they're telling me what to do, I think that and having such a strong emotional reaction to it, I think that is maybe a cause for, not a cause, but maybe an indication that there is some trauma there, because the emotional triggered reaction is not matching up the idea, for example, of thinking that somebody's, oh, I can't believe that this person told me what to do. I can't believe that they're saying that I'm stupid. Doesn't match up with somebody sharing their own viewpoint and their own perspective on a subject. Anyways, guys, much love as always. Drop me a like, hit me with a subscribe if you found this useful. I'm going to be dropping more videos that are just kind of me sharing thoughts, sharing my own opinions on things, and what I think can be a value and a valuable perspective to look at things. Reading this book about the way that, like, men versus women communicate has been illuminating for me on this subject, and I had to come on here essentially to state my piece. Honestly, any YouTuber, that's what we're doing anyways. We're all offering unsolicited advice. Even this woman here that has this video about, oh, I can't believe that this person offered me this encouraging thing. She's basically saying that she wants them to just be a neutral listener. But by putting people into this, pinholing people into, oh, you have to only just be a neutral listener, you are then controlling the way that they respond to you. That's maybe unnatural to them. Because maybe the way that they naturally respond is to be like, oh yeah, that sounds like a cool idea. And if you shut that down, that's you're being controlling of their natural desire to be supportive of their friend. And I think that is uncalled for. It's unnecessary. And I think it's kind of toxic. Anyways, much love. And like I said, I hope you found this useful. I will see you guys in the next video. If you have any comments on this, I'd love to hear your guys' opinions. Maybe we can discuss this. If you have any counter arguments, I'm open to hearing them as well. I just personally have looked through a lot of these counter arguments to this, and I think that in all these situations that I mentioned, giving somebody advice is, I think we're not, like I said, not only is it a positive thing, I think it's, in some cases, we're obligated to do it. I can't stay true to myself and not tell somebody what I think is good for their best interest. I can't watch my father, drink himself into a stupor or eat the wrong foods continuously and continuously until he has a heart attack. I just can't do it. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one.